My name is Josh Huester, and during my grade 11 journey, I decided that music composition and piano playing would be my friend that stuck with me throughout the year. Taking a short look at the history of piano, we can learn things we would have never thought just by hearing the beautiful instrument. When talking about the history of piano, we must mention that the piano's ancestry can be traced back to various instruments such as the clavichord, harpsichord, and the dulcimer. But if we trace back even further, we would find that the piano is a descendant of the monochord. When we talk about the theoretical side of the piano, the articulation of your piano playing is of most importance. Using the 12 notes on the keyboard, a song can be created and played so that any one of these 12 notes can be the tonal center or the home base. So in the modern Western music, they use 12 intervals and various ways to play a note on piano that are called articulations. But moving away from the historical and theoretical side of things, music to me is like having the smartest and most opinionated best friend in the world, because you can listen to it no matter what mood you're in and somehow not get tired of it, unless that's just me. Music doesn't stop there though. Can any of you tell me a movie that doesn't have a soundtrack to go with it? Can any of you tell me about a movie that's entertained you to its full potential without a soundtrack that goes along with it? The answer is no. Because though directors and actors are amazing artists in their own respects, music is what completes a great film, in my opinion. It drags you in and allows you to feel every emotion possible. From that one specific scene, and often we as humans resonate with that one scene from that one movie with that one song played. We all have that one movie we connect with, and I'm sure you all understand what I'm saying. A prime example to me is a movie called The Kingsman, The Golden Circle. When Harry steps on a landmine, but Merlin freezes his foot and tricks him into taking his foot off it, replacing it with his own, quite heroically, I might add. Merlin starts singing Take Me Home, Country Road by John Denver. And in that moment, you sit there in anticipation knowing something big is about to happen. Next, what happens is all three characters from the film look at each other and nod their heads. Sorry. Most of you know what happens next. And despite the movie coming out 3 years ago, what happens next is still a sensitive topic. The anticipation you feel is created by the music being sang. And sometimes we as humans don't even realize how attached and connected you feel to something so specific because of the song. But that's just the power of music. Music has a big part to play in my personal life, as I never used to be the most positive and motivated person in the room. But music changed that all for me. I made the decision that I would take hold of my own life, grabbing any opportunity that comes my way. You may be thinking to yourself, but what does this have to do with music? Well, when you're someone that takes every opportunity that you get to listen to music, like myself, you tend to take the things you hear to heart. And that's what I've done. Over the course of the year, I've put together a soundtrack to my life. Unfortunately, or fortunately for some of you, you won't be hearing that soundtrack tonight. But to me, that soundtrack centers me and puts my mindset back on the right path when I've gone off the rails. If I've had a bad day, or I just don't feel like myself, at the end of the day, I'll put my earphones in and listen to it, and I'll instantly feel like myself again. Because when I listen to music, I listen to the message behind it. And with me being into the type of music I am into, such as hip hop and rap, R&B, alternative, jazz, and indie rock, there's usually a story being told in the form of music. And to me, that's the best kind. The reason I chose No Time to Die by Billie Eilish to perform is simply because at the time everything was unfolding at the beginning of the year. This was my favorite song. And the message in the name just made perfect sense to me. In a time like this, there is really no time to die. I told myself that this virus was not going to harm me or anyone close to me. The way my journey panned out during this difficult time was not necessarily the way I wanted it to go. I went from planning on having at least one lesson a week for 7 months with my mentor and teacher, to having close to none up until August. This is due to the pandemic we're currently living through and being on national lockdown. I spent most of my time during lockdown teaching myself how to play piano because that was the only option I had. Oh, sorry, I missed a little bit. I taught myself how to play piano and read music as well as I could have because that was the only option I had, as well as the adaptation I had to go through from learning piano on a digital piano in my living room for approximately 6 months to learning how to play piano, an acoustic piano in the auditorium. It sounds easy, but I was shocked at how different it actually is. Moving back to music in general and why I chose the song I chose, it's because I enjoy listening to musicians that are storytellers. I learn from what they've experienced. And even though there's no real chance that I'll live through what they lived through, it gives me peace of mind to know that they are people who have lived through most horrible things and still turn their lives into success stories. Honestly, nothing motivates me more. I would like to thank Mr. Mbai and Mr. Lo for helping us complete our projects in woodwork and handwork. And I would also like to thank Ms. Hazinger for supporting me constantly and making sure I got all my work done. Before I perform for you guys, I would like to leave you with a quote from myself. Music is the body and the mind's healer. Music heals things that medication cannot touch. Start and end your day off listening to music, and I swear life will be easier. The next speaker is Batsi Matsana. Wag 'n bietjie.
Good afternoon, dear teachers, students, and attendees. And for those of you who have not had the privilege of meeting, my name is Mulabati Matana. And as obvious as it is, I stand here today to present my grade 11 project. Without a doubt, it's turned out to be quite the year. Very few people had the foresight to see a year like this coming, and we had no way to prepare for it. And yet, we persisted. So well done. This year, we all demonstrated rare leadership qualities and were able to complete our projects, and here we stand. By this time, I was hoping to have my braces off, just so I can smile as I deliver a hopefully good speech. But alas, that didn't happen. Just as similar to how I didn't always stick to my project deadlines. Thank goodness for the extensions. However, it wasn't always like this. I did start off good. And once set sail, it was an experience like no other. We always knew this day would come, where we'd hear our guardian suggest us to start thinking of project ideas that we would undertake for the next 13 months of our lives. Immediately, I knew what I wanted to do. I knew the top three picks that would be chosen by me. As soon as I had the time, I wrote drafts after drafts of what project best suited me. They all particularly related to science in some shape or form. But there was one I've been longing to do and decided the grade 11 project was a good excuse to finally do it. Additionally, I wanted to keep the theme of my high school projects the same, and so I set my year 11th independent research project on climate controlled environments. Well, that's what I officially agreed to myself 2/3 of the way through. Before that, I constantly needed to adjust the answer to every inquisitive person who asked, "What exactly is your project?" Now that I finalized my project, I can properly explain what I worked on without having to improvise an answer. The central focus of my research was the technological advancements made in the field of controlled environments to better fit our needs and the needs of those around us. From the early cultivation of plants to synthetically creating climates that mimic regions on Earth, I spent a large majority of my research designing my own table sized plant grow chamber. These chambers are simple concepts. There are specialized types of environmental test chambers which are designed to perform growth for optimal conditions, usually for laboratory testing. In the early stages of my research, I had no shortage of passion, excitement, and drive. Key feelings that allowed me to complete sections of my project well ahead of time. Being so ahead of schedule, I couldn't help but feel a little proud. Unfortunately, not for long. The moment was short lived, and towards the end of the project, months turned into days, days turned into hours. And in those hours, the upcoming section of my project was due, and I only had 2/3 of the work done. I don't recall another time in my short history that I've worked so hard to complete something in so little time. I say it again, thank goodness for extensions. Like any amateur coder, I believe the most difficult part of my research would have been further developing my software engineering skills to extend to my project's needs. In the end, that proved to be the least troubling hurdle in the race. No, the hard part was writing a script, then psyching myself up to call a manufacturer to assist in providing the necessary materials for the project. In the end, it was not as bad as I played in my head. I could have made the growth chamber in dozens of ways, but it quickly became expensive. Additionally, I wanted to keep the concept simple and autonomous. Plant growth chambers vary from one form to the other, depending on several factors, from optimizing energy efficiency to experimenting with new hybrid environments. There are, however, key components that are crucial to have in the system. So, I want to take a small theoretical journey with you. Let's walk together and construct a plant growth chamber. We have ourselves needing to find a way to protect an organic plant, so we construct a fully enclosing the plant. Although a fully enclosed environment does protect the plant from exterior elements, it will succumb to death without substitutions from sunlight, water, and airflow. Our plant is in no way an ordinary. We, however, this is really awesome because at least now we know what are some crucial factors into the project. In any project, we know we're getting somewhere if we run into challenges, because challenges create drives, and drives create problem solving. Now let's try and mimic the sun. When it comes down to synthetic lighting, there's a variety of different options which are better at handling different tasks. White light is found to help in plant, ah, leaf growth, whilst blue and red light stimulates flowering. Recap: external protective barrier, check. Fake lighting, check. Water for our high maintenance plants, it's a fairly straight concept. Water, pump, tubing. A bit of creativity, and we're two-thirds of the way there. Depending on whether we wish to make the plant chamber semi-portable, which we will then store the water in an internal chamber, meaning we need to redesign the chamber to have a storing section and locate a pump in additional section, as well as connecting these sections with tubing, which will allow the water to move through sections from sections. Alternatively, a stationary chamber allows us to store water in an exterior storage and have the piping transport water into the system. Take a deep breath. We're almost done. At this moment, we have substitute lighting system and a watering system, as well as a simple ventilation system, which flows from the upper chamber and makes its way to the bottom chamber, where we will place a fan to allow gases in the chamber to expel outwards. This is simply to avoid high levels of humidity as well as control the circulation of air. The last thing to think about is the system's waste. It may not be as foul as changing diapers, but if left unchecked, it might as well be. So, we must avoid a clog at all costs. We need to place a waste system to remove so we can simply use gravity as our support. Waste in the form of liquid will flow out of the bottom chamber with carefully made separation valves. With all of our components set but unresponsive, we need some electrical skills to understand how to best wire the system and connect to the exterior chamber that houses the control modules. Here is where we have the chance to automate the system using microcontrollers from boards like Arduino, BeagleBoard, and Raspberry Pi to control the internal components. This allows us to control modules whilst other modules remains on and off as the many different variations between the two, including an internal clock to fully automate the system. Think of this component as the brains of the operation. Well, this is more or less the oversimplified breakdown of a plant growth chamber. More thought usually generally goes into it. For instance, choosing the material of the tube and chambers isn't as easy as picking anything off the shelf. Under normal circumstances, we would pick something that doesn't allow for natural light to enter the system, since we're dealing with moisture or organic substances. And if light enters the equation, it's a recipe for cultivating foreign organic substances. In the event that you do not enjoy frequently scrubbing moss down, I'd suggest using the proper materials. Though this isn't the state of the art winning design, in fact, some might call it the state of the art expensive junk, perhaps my sister, but it removes several issues of growing plants outdoors, where the environment is unviable. Far more advanced systems are capable of delivering more and reducing the growth time, and improves the quality of the plant. So why all this trouble and money for a glorified plant pot? Well, humanity. We managed to continually revolutionize methods that existed in previous generations. As abnormal and twisted as it sounds, manipulation of our environment is not a recent event, nor is it as ungodly as it sounds. Early humans have explored the nature of manipulating their environment to best suit their needs. As early as 9,500 BC, humans took what naturally grew around them and made it their own. Today, we not only have the technology to manipulate the world for our needs and desires, but also the needs of desires of all the Earth's inhabitants, so that we remain at a point of equal balance between giving and receiving. Without this balance, the scale tilts, then folds, along with the order of all things. As a species, the miserable reality is our vision only extends to the bridges of our noses. We simply only react to the forthcoming disaster once it's upon us. In life, there are no right or wrong answers, there are only trade offs. Sooner or later, our current methods of living will no longer be viable for sustainability, and it's now that we have the option to develop research into more sustainable resources before that scale tilts. This project wouldn't have been possible without my mother, Jill Sissoko, and my internal mentor, Ashley Chamberlain. So I'd like to end my speech by thanking them and welcoming our next talented speaker, Lakshana Govender.
As you change your points of view, your views bring about a change in you. George Alexio. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Lakshana Govender, and I did Access Bars for my grade 11 project. Access Bars falls under the banner of Access Consciousness, which mainly aims to create a world of oneness where everything exists without judgment. Access Bars is a type of energetic healing that undoes the limitations or stuckness that prevents us from being the best version of ourselves. The bars are 32 energy points that run through and around the head, storing all thoughts, feelings, point of views, and emotions that we have ever had about anything, even from various lifetimes. These points correspond to different areas and aspects of our life, and when gently held, dissipates those thoughts and emotions that are creating stuckness. By running your bars, you're going straight to the source of an issue without actually having to know what the issue is. The bars was founded by Gary Douglas in the early 1990s, and it was the first Access Consciousness class to be held. Access is based mainly on the idea that you are not wrong and that your consciousness can shift anything. Empowering you to know that you know is their slogan. As unique individuals, we all have the answers within us to what we are looking for. One of the first tools discussed in any Access class is to ask a question. A question empowers, whereas an answer disempowers and creates limitations. Another tool is to say their mantra. All of life comes to me with ease, joy, and glory, at least 20 times a day to start creating a change. I know personally this mantra works with creating more money with ease. Today, Access is practiced in over 170 countries worldwide and is used as a powerful tool by families, schools, businesses, and other practices. Bars has assisted thousands of people to change many aspects of their lives. People have reported better health, sleep, better sex and relationships, and relief from anxiety, and so much more. In my experience, bars has helped me with my stress, depression, ADD, and anxiety. From the time I qualified as a practitioner in December 2018, I've always noticed positive changes after a bar session. I have to admit that when I was first introduced to Access Bars by my mother, I was not interested at all by what it was or by what it did. I thought it was a bunch of nonsense and that it wouldn't help me with anything. But she encouraged me to join the class because she said it would be beneficial for me. Even after I became a practitioner, I was still not convinced, only until after a few sessions when I started to take notice of the changes I was feeling. I was less angry, I could concentrate better, I felt less anxious, and I was not so overwhelmed. Overall, I was more confident. So I then acknowledged that it was the bars that was helping me. And so whenever I felt uneasy, irritated, angry, or found myself feeling cranky, I knew I needed my bars run. It is the same within my family. Bars has helped create a better environment in our home. There is less unnecessary arguing and fights. We have become more joyful and we communicate better with each other. I am so grateful that we have this tool in our home. The practical bit of my project was a bit challenging at first because I did not have time to see clients due to my grade 11 play. And even after my play, Corona hit and we were forced into lockdown where we were not allowed to see or touch other people. So, as a solution, I ran my family's bars so that I could have enough hours. When the restrictions were lifted, we had a bar swap, which was nice because I got to experience running bars on another person, which I really enjoyed. Before I end, I would like to show you a few easy points which you can do on yourself or on somebody around you as you are watching. The first point I want to show you is implant band, which is situated with your 3 fingers placed like this behind the shell of your ear after the ridge bone on both sides. So while you're holding this point, I'm going to say a small clearing for you. Though these points are normally held for 5 minutes, we do not have time, so 1 minute will be sufficient. Implant band run, right, wrong, good, bad, POC, pod, all 9, shorts, boys, and beyond. Implant band run, right, wrong, good, bad, POC, pod, all 9, shorts, boys, and beyond. Implant band run, right, wrong, good, bad, POC, pod, all 9, shorts, boys, and beyond. This point is where you have all your thoughts, ideas, beliefs, attitudes, and emotions that you have either aligned and agreed with or resisted and reacted to. It affects all the other parts of your body and deals with everything that has been implanted and explanted in you in any lifetime. The clearing that I have just said is like a magic wand. It is designed to bring up energies and clear them every time you say it. In order for the point to be activated, the statement must be said after you ask the specific point to run. Unfortunately, bars cannot be run while music is being played because music switches off our implants and we need our implants to be on so that it can bring up our judgments and point of views. We can, however, watch TV because that brings up a lot of point of views and judgments, and it is easier to clear. Animals do not have bars as they do not have point of views. But I have noticed that whenever we are running our bars, our animals tend to sit near or on top of us. You can put your hands down. The next point that I want to show you is aging toaster, which is situated on the top of your head, which is in line with your inner eye and the top of your ear with your fingers placed like this. Aging toaster run, right, wrong, good, bad, POC, pod, all 9, shorts, boys, and beyond. Aging toaster run, right, wrong, good, bad, POC, pod, all 9, shorts, boys, and beyond. Aging toaster run, right, wrong, good, bad, POC, pod, all 9, shorts, boys, and beyond. This point is designed to take care of all the point of views you have stored about what it means to age, die, or have your body fall apart with age. All your judgments and attitudes, expectations that you have been formed for many lifetimes. Each word of the clearing statement has a meaning behind it. Right, wrong, good, bad stands for everything that is right and wrong about your point of view. POC is the point of creation. Pod is the point of destruction, where your views can be destroyed. All 9 are the 9 layers which you clear energetically. Shorts is what is meaningful and meaningless about your point of view. Boys is everywhere where you are not having results in having that point of view or judgment. Beyonds are the feelings and sensations that surprise you. You can put down your hands if you're still holding your hands. I hope that you feel some sort of difference. And now I would like to end by thanking my internal mentor, Mrs. Pinero, for being so helpful and supportive throughout the duration of this project. I know I would not be here feeling confident and prepared enough without you. I would also like to thank my external mentor, Vaseline Govender, who is also my mother, for introducing me to Access Bars, which has definitely changed my life for the better. I would like to thank my family members for being my clients and supporting me. And I would like to thank my guardian, Mrs. Correa, for being an emotional support throughout this stressful period. Thank you all for listening. I would like to introduce the next speaker, which is Hannah Jorgensen.
Every corpse on Mount Everest was once an extremely motivated person. Afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Hannah Jorgensen. For my project, I decided to tackle the terrifying but super exciting challenge of hiking to Base Camp Everest. I would like to start by thanking my external mentor, Lee Den Hunt, who was my inspiration for this decision. She was the third South African woman to summit Mount Everest on the South Col route in May 2013. She walked for a purpose, obtained sponsorships, and with these, she started and developed the Field of Dreams Foundation. I was inspired to follow her in her footsteps and walk for a purpose, to raise funds to hike to Base Camp Everest. Of course, I'm not permitted to hike to the top of Mount Everest for various reasons, such as my age and lung capacity. So instead, I choose to hike to Base Camp Everest on the Nepal side. The route of 160 kilometers return over 11 days to an altitude of 5,680 meters above sea level. Here are some interesting facts about Everest. There have been 10,155 summits and 306 deaths on Everest. The youngest person to summit in May 2010 was 13 years old, and the oldest person to summit in May 1980 was 80 years of age. The first woman only summited Everest in 1975. One lady has done it 8 times, and 2 gentlemen 21 times. Yes, they were Sherpas. Yes, they were Sherpas, which is a term referring to the local inhabitants of the slopes of Everest. Some hikers have done it solo, unaided, and with no oxygen. There have been many famous people, other than Lee, who have tackled this route since its inspection. It is strange to think that I will be following the ancient route explored by the first official, Sir Edmund Hillary and Tenzing Norgay, on 29th of May, 1953. They all had to walk this path to reach Base Camp Everest to start the summit of the South Col. The route was unclear and they had to explore their way. The mountaineers of the day walked with what they considered the high-tech equipment of their time: woolen socks, leather duffel bags, and sheepskin for warmth at night. I'm glad I'm doing this in the 21st century. Their clothing consisted of many layers with oilskin for waterproofing. On the first expedition, their boots were heavy and not often totally waterproof. The accommodation was tented, and much equipment and supplies had to be carried to the start of the summit. Yaks were used and are still used today as a 4x4 transport of choice for equipment and supplies along the route. I watched countless of YouTube videos from different people, and the yaks are always a feature. I will be sure to watch out and listen for the bells of the yak attack warning, a term used to warn hikers of their approach. I planned to depart on the 1st of April 2020, as this was the best time to hike, and it would have been a similar time that Lee had done it. But we all know where that went, thanks to COVID. I would have been one of the 40,000 people to do this hike from Lukla Airport to Base Camp Everest. I was looking forward to landing at Lukla Airport, considered the most dangerous airport in the world. something to do with landing on the side of a mountain in the Himalayas. Apparently, it's a little risky. The route has been developed to accommodate commercial hikers. We do not walk up all the time, but we cross over valleys and suspension bridges. The terrain is sandy and generally easy to navigate. You walk anywhere from 5 to 7 hours a day, depending on how the altitude affects you. I read that on the last day, it takes you 5 hours to walk 5 kilometers because of the low oxygen levels. It is difficult to comprehend this. You also do not walk every day, but have 2 days to adjust to the altitude, where you can walk the local area or sit and enjoy the view. I was really looking forward to having a donut at the highest bakery in the world, literally called the world's highest bakery cafe, located below base camp. The temperatures, they say, will be a maximum of 15 degrees and a minimum of minus 16 degrees Celsius. Now I realize why I have so much thermal clothing and why a beanie is essential, because 80% of your heat is lost through your head. Fortunately, rain would not be an issue on this hike at this time of the year that I have chose. I would have relied on a yak to carry my main pack, which is one single 20 kg bag. How are they expecting me to pack all my gear into it? I am not sure. Water bottle, suntan lotion, and other little small bits go into my day pack. The recommended water bottle should not be plastic, as water freezes, and should have a wide drinking mouth, as it is easier to gouge out ice in a wide drinking mouth than wait for it to melt in a narrow spout. Water purification is suggested in tablet form as liquid freezes. There is limited refrigeration after Lukla, and they suggest to only eat vegetarian from this point on. The accommodation would be in a tea house with shared ablution and minimal warmth. Hence, my sleeping bag has a silk inner to keep it clean as well as to provide me warmth. The indications on my sleeping bag says it can go up to minus 18 degrees Celsius. There is less air pressure on Everest the higher you walk. So altitude sickness is a major concern. Altitude sickness occurs at low levels, like this, where instead of breathing in 100% oxygen, you can only take in 40% oxygen. The result in your red blood cells take in liquid instead of air to compensate, causing sometimes a headache and a raspy flu-like cough. There are no tests to predict who could be prone to it or not. Once you show symptoms, you need to remain where you are and not go higher in altitude. You'll either adapt and be able to continue, or if not, you'll need to drop in altitudes. There are a few guidelines to assist you in not getting altitude sickness. These include drinking a lot of water, up to 4 liters per day, which will keep flushing your system. There is also a technique called walk high, sleep low. When you reach your sleeping point, walk about 100 meters up, higher in altitude, rest for about 15 minutes, and then walk back down to your sleeping hut. Most importantly, walk slowly and at a steady pace. This will allow easy adjustment to the altitudes. There are also 2 adapting days on the route where you can sit and enjoy the viewpoints and get used to the low oxygen levels. But enough about Everest. What about me? My training started with wearing my new hiking boots in December. I went to Switzerland with my family so that I could break into my boots in genuine snow. Yes, beautiful Switzerland, where instead of a blissful Christmas break, I had a blister-filled one. I soon realized how the important correct lightwear supporting hiking boots are. I wear 2 pairs of socks. They recommend fast-drying socks. I also have to use walking poles, which are quite challenging. Ever tried to coordinate arms, legs, poles, and still be comfortable in your stride? I'm sure it's funny to watch. I imagine myself looking like an overgrown toddler learning to walk. As I mentioned, I was not able to do my hike to Base Camp Everest due to COVID-19, but instead, I hiked at Moorfield Farm in KwaZulu-Natal. Thank you to Thomas and Sonia Holtz, who assisted me in obtaining a permit to walk at Moorfield during the lockdown. The intention was to test my equipment as best as I could in these circumstances. I packed as if I was packing to hike to Base Camp Everest, one bag, 20 kgs. It was a steep learning curve. My day pack fitted snugly, and I quickly learned what all the straps were about to distribute the weight among my body. I carried 2 liters of water and snacks like dried fruit, chocolate, and bananas and nuts. Lip ice was a priority. In my pack, I also carried a mini first aid kit. I tested the waterproofing of my boots, and I can gladly say the water level can almost go above my ankles before my toes get wet. When I set out to walk the first morning with my brother and mom, the ice on the gate had frozen. I was wearing thermal clothing and a dual-purpose windbreaker. I did not wear my down jacket this day, but I wish I had. As I walked, I became warmer and had to take off layers. The hike was a little different to what I expected. Instead of a neat and easy hiking path, I was boulder hopping without walking sticks to the edge of a waterfall. The paths at Moorfield are contour paths following the side of a mountain. They were narrow and a little bit scary, and the wind was blowing the grass over them. At one stage, I was lost, or should we say, we were lost, and decided to move straight up the side of a mountain, forging our own path. That was difficult, like climbing many stairs. My legs were burning and shaking, but I got up in one piece. The wind was strong, and it kept blowing my hat flaps back. Luckily, it was attached to my chin and a drawstring around my head, which kept it in place. On this walk, we had a South African version of a yak attack. Less exciting, because it was only cows, but still heart-stopping. I was so happy to have a warm sleeping bag, as it was one of the coldest weekends at Moorfield. The first day's temperatures did not go above 3 degrees, and that was without the wind chill factor. The whole experience was certainly good practice for Everest. I would like to say thank you to my internal mentor, Mr. F. Yoon, for the support, guidance, and patience through the process. Thank you to Ms. Korea, Lee, and Laura for assisting me with your knowledge and support. Thank you to my brother and dad for supporting me. And lastly, to my mom for all her input and for making this a reality, and for getting me out of the duvet when I would rather snuggle up in the duvet than add to my blister collection. This has been one small step towards Base Camp Everest, but I will be taking many more when I do this hike next year. And I will remain motivated and determined to get that donut. Thank you. Up next is Patsimo Kashakatia.
When you think of architecture, what comes to mind? Many people may think about the giant skyscrapers we see coming up all over the world today. That new mall you saw on your drive here, or that estate you thought was quite beautiful, except every house was packed on top of the other like a can of sardines. Now, let's narrow it down. What comes to mind when you think of architecture ancient architecture on the continent of Africa? Now, here, this is where some of you may not come up with anything at all. Or maybe one of you thought about the ancient pyramids of Egypt. I know I did. Today, I will not be talking about giant skyscrapers, malls, compact estates, or even the pyramids. Today, I will be talking about something a little closer to home. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Patimo Kashikatia, and for my grade 11 project, I chose to do African architecture. There are different types of designs that our ancestors used to design their homes, but in them they designed their homes. There are many similarities between the cultures. I chose to focus my project on 3 main designs: Zulu, Tswana, and Xhosa. The Zulu hut is one similar to a beehive. The materials that were used were easily found through the landscape because the earth provided what was needed. They would start by drawing a circle into the earth to determine the size of the hut. And from there, they would place branches vertically up towards the sky and attach them at the top. From there, they would use horizontal branches and attach them to the structure to create a dome-like shape. Once they were satisfied with the dome-like structure, they would take the reeds and weave them through the structure. This process was one similar to how a basket is woven. The door of the Zulu hut was quite close to the ground, and a tree trunk was used to hold the door up. The size of the hut was the size of the door was to stop an intruder. It was easily for them to be stopped because of their vulnerable position. Tswana architecture is similar to Zulu because of the circular shape. The differences between the two cultures is that Tswana architecture uses mud instead of branches. Also, over time, the structure became square-shaped. The houses would have consist of 3 to 4 structures. The largest structure would be considered to be the main house. The materials that were used to create the Tswana house were reeds, thatch, mud, and stone. A circle was drawn into the earth to show where the trench would be dug. The trench would be 1 meter in depth and 1 meter in width. From there, they would combine a sand and stone mixture and fill the trench with it. From there, the sand and stone mixture would then be layered until it reached the desired size of the hut. From there, the roof would be done. The roof was done with 28 rafters and a pole in the center to secure the roof and make sure it would not collapse. The roof was a cone-like shape. Once the rafters were secure, the thatch would then be added. This part was usually done by the woman of the house. The thatch roof would have a supporting outer ring of posts, would have a supporting outer ring of poles. The Xhosa Rondeville hut is very similar to the Tswana. The building process and the structure is almost identical. The house is round in shape, and the materials would range from mud, grasses, tree poles, and different herbal materials. The structure was round and strong. To build the roof, they would use reeds and layer them onto the structure of shafts before layering dried leaves and grass. This would then create a cone-like shape. Over time, this developed into a progressively strong structure. They would stuff mud around the structure and frame a divider, and the covering improved over time. The floors were made of mud and compost. Thatch was always used to make the roof due to the fact that using any other material would be extremely difficult to create the cone-like shape. Like the Tswana house, there was an outer ring of poles to keep the roof up. After colonization, there was more wood infused to the household, and glass was then added to create windows. When it came to the practical component of my project, I struggled quite a bit. I had initially chosen to do a different project, but due to the coronavirus, I had to change my project to something that could be done without me being physically there. That was a shock to my system, because while everyone was submitting their theoretical, I had to start by submitting a practical I had to submit a proposal of an entirely different project. The only similarities between the two was the fact that they were both African. I was lucky enough to find an amazing mentor, Dumi Murule. My first meeting with Dumi, I was completely terrified and would not let my mother leave me alone. After a brief introduction and a breakdown of what he and his team had in store for me, I felt comfortable enough to let my mother leave. After a few meetings with Dumit and him telling me the basic of architecture, I was convinced then I could design my own house. But to my great disappointment, I was not. I started to work on minor projects with him and his team. In my short time with Dumi, he and his team had given me 2 tasks. The first one was to create a room in a building that I was passionate about, and the second was to design a layout of a city. Between the 2 tasks, my favorite was the layout was a city. The city was based in Limpopo, and it would have to be self-sufficient. This means that everything a person needed was in a short distance to stop the long commute from people from their homes to their daily life. I was then given with the task to start with the city center, and from there, what would I do? When I first started, I wanted to have my city center and around the city center to have office buildings and large shopping centers. This was to keep the working environment in one setting. From there, on the outer ring of the city, I wanted to add the living quarters. Since the city needed to survive on its own, I wanted to add farmlands on the outskirts. This would mean that the food would be fresh and not be transported from God knows where. Me adding a farm would also open job opportunities for the people on the land, since this is a great struggle we are dealing with in South Africa today. Hopefully, during the holidays, I will get to design my own eco-friendly dream house along the coast of the Eastern Cape to get all my Pinterest ideas off a computer and into a building that I have designed. I would like to thank everyone who helped me along my journey. My mother for motivating me in times when I hit a wall and saying it was okay. I'm thankful to my sister for always being there through every one of my crying sessions and complaining, saying, you know what, it is what it is. I want to thank my external mentor, Tumi Murwale, and his team for being behind me in my last minute project and including me in their confidential projects. My internal mentor, Mrs. Jordan, for dealing with me and helping me through my project, and for always sending me pictures of the architecture she had seen. I want to thank the school and Ms. Kafuria for giving me this opportunity, and hopefully this project will be a doorway into my career as a successful architect. I would now like to show you a slideshow of the different structures and the city. Okay, apparently it's just warming up. Okay, I'm not sure if you can see this, but as you can see, it's on your left, I think. The dome-like structure and the vertical branches that they used. And then on your right is a picture that I found on the internet. Here you can see a close view of the roof and how it was done. Here is the Tswana architecture, and from there you can see the outer ring of poles and how they structured the roof. And this is another view of the same building. This is the Xhosa architecture, as you can see. Same outer ring of posts. This is another view. Hopefully, I will get to build my dream house along the coast of the Eastern Cape, like you see up there. This is the self-sufficient city in Limpopo. It has an in-developed print, as you can see. This is a 3D model. As you can see, the patterns of the city. This is my modern take of what I want to design. If I go into the Zulu field, this is the way I would like to do it. And this is the close, as you can see, with the conical roof. And yeah, thank you. I would like to invite our last, but definitely not least speaker, Georgia Lobin.
In fire, you can plan everything out to the minute, and a minute before that, everything changes. Dan Felix. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Georgia Lobin, or Georgia the Firefighting Legend, whichever you prefer, and I did my project on firefighting and emergency medical response. Fair warning, my speech is going to get pretty heated. Firefighting is the action or process of extinguishing fires or protecting others from hazardous and harmful dangers as a part of their jobs. And an emergency medical responder is somebody who is specially trained to provide out-of-hospital care in emergency situations. The purpose of these two jobs is to prevent fires and dangers, to protect citizens, and to preserve life. Whilst one performs such acts, it is of great importance to have good values, to always respect those around you, to have integrity, to give unconditional service, and to have courage as often as one can in the work environment in order to complete the job safely. With a job such as these, there is a lot of trauma that comes with it. Firefighters and EMRs experience death and loss daily, having to walk away from a bad situation and likely having to do it again the following day. One thing that has really impacted me during what I have experienced was something one of the firefighters had said to me during an interview. I asked him how he was able to cope with such trauma and how he was able to detach himself from the situation. He replied to me, "This job has always been a calling for me, and it became my passion to help my fellow community. Some days the case is mild, such as the death of an elderly man or woman who had passed peacefully. Other days, you may be met with the death of a child. In such an event, the thoughts going through one's head are to think of every possible solution to get the pulse back and of the child breathing again, just a sign of hope." Many people who I've met on my journey have also expressed how rewarding it feels to accomplish protecting their community and the amazing things that they experience. One man described how he felt privileged to have delivered 3 babies in his lifetime and to have been able to see the first glance of a mother looking upon her newborn. The official origination of firefighting is said to be from the 3rd century BC in Rome. A man named Marcus Licinius Crassus created a group of 500 men who would patrol the city as an emergency force and security response. However, when there was a cry for help during a fire, the firemen would not help immediately, but would rather negotiate a price with the owner of the house in exchange for putting out the fire. Most of the time, the negotiating would take too long, or the suggested price was not up to standard for the firefighters, and they would just leave the building to burn. The official fire brigade was called the Vigiles and was founded in 60 AD by Emperor Nero of Rome. Their system was less corrupt than the previous hundreds of years, as they would immediately create a line from the nearest water source, leading to where the fire was. The firefighters would then fill up buckets of water at one end and pass them to one another towards the other end of the line. Imagine, your house is burning down, and there are a bunch of men running around hysterically in dresses and sandals, shouting at each other. This method was unfortunately not always effective, as most of the structures were made out of wood and would need to be rebuilt in the end. The main purpose of the fire brigade was to prevent the spread of fires and to ensure the safety of the citizens. Firefighting evolved to become 6,000 men with axes and buckets, who also had the authority to distribute corporal punishment to lawbreakers. In modern times, when there is an emergency, a call will be placed by whomever needs assistance. This call will go to a helpline for all emergencies, and once the address and situation has been confirmed, the call center will then call the reception at the fire station. The firefighter on duty rings an alert bell, and firefighters will have 1 to 3 minutes to have full gear on and to be stationed by the vehicle. The platoon commander or lieutenant will then address the firefighters responding and will briefly explain the emergency. Ambulances will often be sent with, as well as advanced life support responders. Once on scene, different groups of personnel will perform certain tasks based on their specializations and skill set. After an evaluation has happened about what had occurred, the emergency responders return to the station. Currently, too many firefighting services around the world, especially those from poor resource municipalities, are struggling to provide sustainable and cost-effective emergency services. The number of lives lost by an injury sustained as a result of fires is alarming. Statistics show that South Africa, in its analysis of causes of death based on death certificates, proves that there are 2,241 deaths due to smoke, fire, and flames in 2015 alone. Which indicates that more work is required by all stakeholders led by government to deal with fires to reduce the number of deaths and injuries. South Africa has one of the highest levels of death and disability from injury in the world, of which 48% involves the need of the fire department. I completed my hours during my practical by going Sundays to the fire station, where I soon learned that the firefighting breakfast of champions was from the Pizza Perfect down the road. I was also fortunate to complete a health and safety course for basic firefighting and my first aid. Some things that I learned were CPR and that a first aider is not obligated morally nor legally to assist in an emergency. As a warning to everybody, be kind to those around you because you never know who may be the nearest first aider. Once they have begun treating a patient, they should never hand their patient over to somebody with less or of the same qualification as a first aider. They should only stop treating someone when they are exhausted or when someone of a higher ranking has arrived. The most important thing to remember is that your safety comes first because you cannot assist in an emergency if you yourself are injured. One day, I was even able to assist on a patient during school hours. We were in woodwork class and I noticed that my fellow classmate, Hannah Jorgensen, had torn her tights slightly in the front of her leg. She exclaimed to me that the gouge had just slipped and that it was nothing serious. Well, after some further inspection, it proved to be a bit more concerning than she had exclaimed, and Hannah now had quite a deep open wound. After a lot of convincing, we both made our way to the office for a patch-up, and I had to actually hold the wound closed whilst a butterfly plaster was placed over it. All the while, Hannah continued to say how it wasn't even sore and that she was perfectly fine. 2 hours later and a trip to the hospital, I think she was convinced otherwise. This has truly been an incredible journey, and it is safe to say that I have learned and seen a lot in the past couple of months, which has proven to be useful to me as I have gained a lot of confidence in the path to my future. I intend to now pursue a career in medicine and will be continuing with my second level of first aid. Medicine has also become a passion of mine to learn about. I have gained a lot of appreciation for our health and safety responders during my project as I have seen their hard work and determination firsthand. The same determination I will be working towards to achieve my goal one day and complete my degree, and I hope to continue volunteering at the fire station. I would like to thank Station 16 for allowing me to complete my hours and for always making me feel welcomed and useful whilst spending my time there. I would like to thank my sisters for their support and helping me choose my project topic, to my stepfather Brad for giving me unconditional support and for helping me with my written components, to the school for giving me this incredible opportunity, my mom for paying for the fees of all my courses and for her support, to the handwork and woodwork teachers for helping me complete my book and stand throughout the pandemic, Miss Miller for giving me assistance on my written components, to my internal mentor, Mrs. Wane, for always being so patient with me and always offering advice when I needed it. And lastly, to the audience for taking the time to listen to my speech. I leave you with this quote. Security is mostly a superstition. It does not exist in nature, nor do the children of man as a whole experience it. Avoiding danger is no safer in the long run than outright exposure. Life is either a daring adventure or nothing. Helen Keller. Thank you.
So, this concludes our project presentations for this year. I would like to once again congratulate the entire grade 11s for presenting us with outstanding speeches throughout the week. And thank you to the audience, thank you to the mentors, and thank you to the ones who have been watching and supporting online. Mr. Bester would like to say something.
So, dear My Command community, I want to really just acknowledge how different this year has been and the incredible job all our students have done under very difficult circumstances. And I think you will agree that the standard of speeches and the vast variety of topics has been absolutely amazing, and well done to all of you here and those who can't be with you, your classmates. I think the fact that you have not had your classmates with you through this has been quite hard for all of you. But I want to acknowledge your tenacity in delivering the speeches. And then to all the mentors and teachers who really stood behind each single student, thank you for your incredible work under difficult circumstances and mentoring from a distance for most of the project. And then the real reason I wanted to come up is that the two people who have not been acknowledged in this whole process are the two guardians, Ms. Courier and Mrs. Footer. Thank you for your incredible job that you have done. You have had to be resilient. You've had to discover things on the fly. You've had to change direction with whatever has been brought towards us through this pandemic. So I'd like us all, on behalf of all of you, all the students that are not here, the parents that are not here, the community that's not here and watching online, give a huge hand of applause to the two guardians. Thank you, and drive safely.